Welcome back to Stories from the Vine. So today I have paired Kristen Hanna's book, The Nightingale, with Domaine Huet's Vouvray white wine. So Kristen Hanna has quickly become one of my favorite authors. She develops very complex characters and storylines, so her books need to be paired with wines that also tell a very compelling story. The opening sentence of The Nightingale is, "If I have learned anything in this long life of mine, it is this. In love, we find out who we want to be. In war, we find out who we are." So the book needed to be paired with a wine that has truly experienced war. The setting for The Nightingale is Loire Valley, France, during World War II. We needed a wine from Loire Valley that suffered through World War II as well. We need a wine with a story of strength, of courage, of reinvention, and most of all, survival. And that wine is Domaine Huet's Vouvray white wine. So Domaine Huet's Moilou wine is the richest and most concentrated Vouvray. When we think about our protagonist, Isabelle, wasn't she rich? Not in the material sense, but she was rich in terms of having high value and high quality. She was magnificently impressive. And wasn't she concentrated? She was intense, she had one purpose, one focus, and it was supporting the French resistance. She was directed to this one thing, and this one thing only. Her character was so fully developed, I experienced with her her fear, her triumph, her power, and her pain. Kristen Hanna created a character in Isabelle who was vibrantly rich and intensely concentrated. So this wine was made from Chenin Blanc grapes from Loire Valley. In this region of France, the ripeness of the grape can be so uneven that the grapes are usually picked by hand during multiple passes through the vineyard. Doesn't this also describe Isabelle as she's growing up, as she's ripening? She's uneven, she's unpredictable, and she requires a lot of hands-on attention. So now I want to do a deeper dive into this book, the history of the winery, the founder, and its most incredible story. So The Nightingale is about the difference that one woman made in the lives of others during World War II. It is one woman's triumph during war. Domaine Huet shares a very similar story. So the founder, Victor Huet, was a Parisian bistro owner who bought a vineyard and moved to the town of Vouvray in the Loire Valley. In 1928, he launched Domaine Huet. Fast forward just over a decade, and Victor's son Gaston is now the winemaker. Gaston sees the beginning of World War II, he sees Paris fall to the German forces, and he knows that his town of Vouvray will soon be overtaken by the Germans. So he hides bottles of his Vouvray wine in local caves to prevent German soldiers from drinking or exporting his wine. Shortly after, he is called to active duty, but he is soon captured by the Germans and is a prisoner of war for over 5 years. So now I want to revisit the opening line of Nightingale. In love, we find out who we want to be. In war, we find out who we are. So let's talk about who Gaston Huet was. While a prisoner of war, he blackmailed a guard into allowing him to throw a wine party for his fellow prisoners. This was a very well-organized event. He had bottles of his Vouvray brought in, and when each prisoner found his designated spot at one of the bottles of wine, they found this message. This evening will give us time to recall and glory in one of France's purest treasures, our wine, and to alleviate the misery with which we have had to live for so long. A party to celebrate wine? No, it is not just that. It is also a celebration of us and how we have survived. With this little glass of wine that we are going to drink tonight, we will savor not only a rare fruit, but also the joy of a satisfied heart. So in war times, we see that Gaston Huet wanted to care for others in even the smallest of ways. He was imprisoned, but he was not defeated. 5 years as a prisoner of war, and his message to his fellow prisoners was one of celebration, about celebrating the region's heritage, their legacy, and their survival. So we are drinking tonight the 2020 Domaine Huet Vouvray Moilou Lamont. It is highly acclaimed with ratings of 95 and 96. John Gilman gave this wine a rating of 94, and he said, "On the palate, this wine is deep, full-bodied, and plush on the attack, with bottomless depth at its core, great acids and mineral drive, impeccable balance, and a long, focused, and very youthful finish." I feel like these words could just as easily describe Isabelle. She was stealthy and she was strategic in her attack. She was unassuming, unsuspecting as she took soldiers over mountains and across enemy lines. I could talk for days about the bottomless depth of her core, about her drive, her ability to balance between truly two different worlds. But let's focus on the final statement, the long, focused, and still very youthful finish. That was Isabel. She had a very youthful finish. She was still so young, but until her final day, she never lost focus of her end game. She was a freedom fighter. The battle that she fought, it was long and it was focused and it had a youthful finish. So thank you for joining Stories from the Vine for another book and wine pairing. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and we look forward to seeing you again. And always remember, live life to the fullest through good wine and good books.